When I first heard that order, my gut tightened up. We knew anyone who disobeyed was a traitor. But that day on Omaha Beach, I realized that disobeying an order might be the only way to save lives. My name is Raymond Hill, from Ohio. In '44, I was 21. I was a sergeant in Company B, 116th Infantry Regiment, 29th Division. D-Day, June 6, 1944, is written in the history books, but no one can tell you what it really smelled like. I can still smell it when I close my eyes. The salt wind, smoke, cordite, and burnt flesh. We weren't heroes. We were just kids thrown into a meat grinder. Our landing craft was tossed around like a tin can in a storm. Sergeant Hayes stood at the front, yelling at us to stay close to the sides. We were silent. Each man was in his own head, some thinking of home, some of God. I was holding my M1 rifle, and it was shaking, like it knew it was about to be used to kill. When the ramp dropped, the air was filled with the shriek of bullets. The first burst cut down the lead man, Jones. He fell face first into the water, and the boat instantly turned red. We jumped into the freezing water. Waves smashed into our faces. Shells landed so close the ground beneath the water shook. I heard someone screaming to move toward the shore, but it was pure chaos. Men were drowning, their packs pulling them under, the water turning into a bloody sludge. On the beach, a wall of fire met us. The Germans were up on the bluffs, in concrete nests, hosing everything down with their MG-42s. We tried to take cover behind tank traps, behind bodies, behind anything. Our lieutenant, a young guy from Texas, name was Carroll, was screaming for us to push toward the seawall. His orders were to attack straight up the center, right across the open ground. Suicide. But you don't question orders. I saw one squad go forward. 10 seconds later, they were gone. The sand around them was boiling with impacts. Men were on fire, screaming, losing their minds. And right then I knew. If we followed that order, we'd end up the same. If we didn't, court-martial, firing squad, dishonor. I remember looking at the guy next to me. His name was Tommy Fisher, from Montana. He was younger than me, but he'd already gotten married. He was screaming over the noise, "Sarge, what do we do?" And I didn't know. I couldn't make myself get up into those bullets. Then I looked back, and I saw a small recess in the cliff about 100 feet away. The Germans weren't firing at it, too shallow an angle. I realized if we could make it there, we might hold on. But it meant consciously refusing an order. The lieutenant was demanding we go forward. I was about to lead men sideways. When I yelled, "Follow me," I knew I was signing my own death warrant. But Tommy, Brown, Harris, and the others ran after me. We scrambled for that cliff, diving into the sand, crawling like worms. Bullets kicked up all around us, but none hit. We made it. We found cover. We were alive. A couple minutes later, I looked out and couldn't believe it. The place the lieutenant had ordered us to go was a living hell. There was nobody left from his group. That's when I first understood my rebellion had saved our lives. But it was only the beginning. As we were huddled under that cliff, the German machine guns never let up. Every burst sounded like a hammer on an anvil. We couldn't move forward, open ground, not a shred of cover. The radio was dead. Our radio men had bought it back on the boat. No comms. Command was somewhere behind us, on the other side of this hell. I knew we were a bunch of cut-off men. We were running low on ammo, water, bandages. I could hear the wounded moaning. One guy, Andrews, was holding his gut, trying to stop the bleeding. He was whispering, "Mom." In moments like that, you understand war isn't about heroism. It's about survival. An hour passed, maybe two. Time loses all meaning in a fight. I tried to picture the map in my head. If we went up the slope a bit to the left, we could flank that machine gun nest. But it meant leaving cover and crossing a killing zone. There were no orders, but to wait was to die. I gathered the platoon and said, "Listen up, command is gone, we're on our own." "But Sarge, that's insubordination," someone said. "Yeah, but if we stay here, the tide will bury us all." I made the decision in a split second. We moved out after dark, when the waves and smoke gave us a little cover. We crawled on our bellies through the wet sand, holding our rifles clear of the water. Every foot felt like a mile. Suddenly, a flare lit up the sky, and everything turned white as day. Bullets whined. Someone cried out. Tommy went down. A bullet went clean through his shoulder. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him. I wasn't a hero in that moment. I just didn't want to watch another man die in front of me. We made it to a small depression in the ground, the remains of a destroyed bunker. I told the men to dig in. It stank of soot and death inside. In the corner lay a German radio man, dead, next to a Feldfernsprecher field phone. I saw our chance. Somehow, with the help of a guy who spoke a little German, we found the right frequency and raised another company. The voice on the other end was raspy, but alive. I yelled into the handset, "We're pinned down at grid. Need artillery support, now!" About 20 minutes later, thunderbolts flew overhead. They dropped bombs right on the German positions. The ground shook like the war itself was screaming. When it all went quiet, we got up and moved forward. The enemy positions were wiped out. We took the bluff. It was only later I realized if I hadn't disobeyed that order, we wouldn't have lived to see it. But in war, everything comes with a price. Tommy lost his arm. Brown caught some shrapnel in his back and didn't make it. I looked at him and thought, was it all for nothing? Maybe if I'd followed the order, they'd have died quicker, without the pain. Those thoughts still burn. When we finally linked up with the main force, the battalion commander looked at me coldly. "Where's your lieutenant?" "Dead, sir." "Who was giving the orders?" "I was, sir." "And why did you not follow the order to advance up the center?" I told him the truth. "Because it was a suicide run, sir." He didn't say anything, just stared me down for a long time. Then he said quietly, "Sometimes, to save your men, you have to break the rules." After Normandy, I fought for a long time. Saint-Lô, the Bulge, Remagen. But that one day, June 6th, stayed with me forever. Sometimes I wake up at night, feeling like I'm drowning again in the cold water off Omaha, hearing Tommy scream, seeing the beach on fire. I broke an order that day, and it saved my platoon. But a part of me feels like I betrayed something. Like I survived, not because of the rules, but in spite of them. After the war, I went back to Ohio, got married, worked on a farm. Never told anyone what I did. Not until years later when I met an officer from HQ. He told me that according to the after-action reports, my platoon was the only one that actually accomplished its objective. We took the bluff and secured a path for the landing force. That's when it finally hit me. Sometimes, disobeying an order is your real duty. Over the years, I've come to understand this. Wars aren't won by men who blindly obey, but by men who can think when everything's falling apart. And still, every time I hear the word orders, I remember the faces of the men who didn't live to see the end of that day. We made it out, but a part of us stayed there on that beach, in the sand and the blood. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling it like it was. Because heroism isn't about the pretty words in the newspapers. It's about going against the system to save even one guy. And if that means you have to break an order, then so be it.